Welcome to the lesson on post-sound design hardware. So before we get into this, what's going on with our sound? When we're on set, we've got our field recorder, we've got our shotgun mic, and we're recording sound, and that's an analog signal. So it runs down the cable to our field recorder, and the field recorder has what's called an ADC. AD converter stands for analog to digital converter. So it's taking that analog signal and it's converting it to a digital file. So it's binary, ones and zeros. And this is how we work with the files in sound design in our DAW. But to hear that sound, that has to be reversed. So our computer or whatever hardware we're using, instead of using an ADC, it uses a DAC and it converts it from a digital file to back to analog so we can hear it over speakers or headphones, which are speakers. So obviously the quality of the equipment we use affects the fidelity of the audio that we hear. Now in a theater, if you're watching a film in a theater, we're basically hearing three general types of sounds. We're hearing mono, we're hearing stereo, and then we're hearing surround. So mono sounds are designed to come from specific areas in the room. For example, dialogue is center channel, center speaker, or speakers, mono sound. And other effects too, maybe a punch or whatever. It's coming from those center speakers. And then you might have a mono sound coming from a right rear speaker. Maybe it's a night scene and you want to hear someone walking in the back rear or an owl hoot or whatever. So that's a mono signal coming from a certain area in the room. Then we have stereo and surround sound. And these are similar to each other in that they are playing sometimes the same sound, but they're playing it differently. Let's use rain as an example. Let's say you want either stereo or surround rain in your movie, and you want to have that nice immersive feel. Well, if you take the same rain track and send it to your left and right speaker or to all your surround speakers, all you've done is taken a mono sound and sent it out to all your speakers. And our brain knows that it's hearing the same thing from just various points in the room. And so you'll just subconsciously, your brain will focus on whatever's closest, and that's it. It won't sound right. To get that to be immersive, the rain track coming from the various speakers is different. If you look at a stereo track in Fairlight, you'll see that the waveforms on the left and right speaker tracks are different for the same sound, whether it's ambience, a gunshot, etc. So when they're different, then our brain knows, okay, this isn't the exact same sound and it's coming from more than one spot, so this feels more immersive. And so that's kind of a breakdown of how that works. Now let's take this further and look at home audio. Let's start with the basics. A TV. A TV normally is just a stereo setup. So you've got left and right. And movies, if you hook up a Blu-ray player and play a movie on a TV, the stereo mix for that film is going to be played back on the TV. Blu-rays and even streaming, they have more than one audio mix tied to the picture based on what you have at your house. So if it knows that the movie is being played back on just a TV, it's just a stereo setup, it's going to play the stereo mix for that movie. If it knows that you have a receiver and a surround setup, it's going to play the surround mix for that film, okay? So stereo is not ideal because you've got all of this sound. If it's a Michael Bay movie, you've got explosions and all this stuff going on. You've got beautiful music and you've got dialogue all squished down to a left and right channel. And that's just not good. Even if you have the best speakers in the world, it's still not ideal. So the next step up from that is a 3-1 setup. So you've seen sound bars that are 3-1. Now don't be confused with this. Some sound bars are still just stereo. But a 3-1 sound bar means this. The sound bar has a left and right, but it also has a center channel, and then it has a sub. And that's what the .1 means. 3 speakers, .1 sub. If it was 3.2, it'd be 3 speakers and 2 subs. You never have that setup, but that's the example. So the advantage of 3-1 is now you've got your dialogue and other effects and sounds coming from that center channel, and then the left and right doing what they're supposed to do, whether it be stereo, etc. And so it's just cleaner, it's going to sound more accurate, it's going to sound better. And then of course the next step up from that is true surround sound, where you've got your center channel, you've got your left, right in the front, and you've got your rear sound. And there's different flavors of surround. You've got 5-1, which is left, center, right, and then the 2 rears, and then a sub. Or you've got 7-1, or Dolby Atmos, which you have speakers over you, so you can hear things fly over, etc. And then, of course, the .1 is the sub, .2 is 2 subs. Okay, you've got that. So with our films, we have to decide what our end product is going to be. Are we going to finish with just stereo, or are we going to want to do surround sound? Rose and the Outlaw, for example, just stereo. People are just watching it on YouTube, and they're watching it on phones and computers, so doing a 5:1 mix isn't going to help that movie much. And I didn't have the capabilities to do a 5:1 mix then. So stereo mix was fine, and one of the film festivals I pushed it out to, they even said, hey, the sound on this was really good. They didn't say, hey, it needed to be surround sound. So doing a stereo mix is much cheaper, and that's what a lot of you should probably just step into as you're getting going. But I'm also going to show you how to do a 5:1 mix on your film as well. But the cost gets quite a bit different between the two. So let's talk about hardware now, and let's start with the base requirements and work our way up, okay? So at the very least, you need a quality pair of headphones. These are the Sony MDR 7506, and they're going to give you accurate sound for under $100. And you can just plug these into your computer and go for it. Now, with that, these are great for the phase 1 of sound, all the sound design work. They are not ideal for the phase 2 part, the mixing, because these are closed back headphones, and closed back headphones don't interact with your environment like speakers do. The sound kind of bounces, it's contained and bounces around in here, so it's just not the same. So for the mixing phase, you're not typically mixing on headphones anyway, ideally. But again, we're not sound engineers. We're doing as much as we can with the money we have. So if you can only afford $80 for a pair of headphones, this is what you should do. And again, all of this equipment is in the community in the equipment list. Now, a couple notes. If you have a pair of headphones already, maybe you have a nice pair of Bose headphones, don't use those. Why? Because Bose headphones and other headphones are designed to create a certain listening experience. So they might be boosting the bass, boosting the trebles in a certain way. They're not doing accurate sound reproduction. And you need accurate reproduction to do your sound design work, okay? The other thing you can't do is use your laptop speakers, or even an external set of speakers that you may have purchased to listen to music or gaming or whatever is plugging into your headphone jack. Those are not going to be accurate either. You need accuracy to do sound design. So what's the next step up after these? Well, instead of closed back headphones, you can also get open back headphones, which interact a little more accurately with your environment. The drawback, these are the Sennheiser HD600s. The drawback of these is that they are more expensive. They're around $300. And then also, you need an external amp to power them. These will not be accurate just plugged into your computer. And that's a big deal. I ran into this back in film school. They told us what headphones we should get, so I got those, but they did not tell us that, and maybe they didn't know at that time, that the hardware in the editing bay was not driving headphones correctly, or the headphones they had us get weren't accurate. So I did all of this sound design work on a film, and it sounded great. And I took it to the school theater, and it was horrible. The bass was wildly distorted, and I was mortified because my class was there watching it, and I'd done all this work, and it didn't sound good at all. And it's because my headphones were not accurate. So you've got to be careful with that. If you do buy open back ones, you've got to get an amp. I would avoid that expense because ideally, if you're doing a stereo mix, you should just get a pair of studio monitors for your editing office. So speakers in post-sound land are called monitors, and they're different than the passive speakers that you have on a home surround system. So most home surround systems the speakers are passive and they're powered by the receiver. So you've got long cables with banana plugs plugging them in, etc. Studio monitors are powered. Each one plugs into power, and they have an amp built in to power themselves. So you don't have a receiver doing all that work for you. And the other thing you need to know about that, though, is that they won't plug directly into your computer. So you're going to have hardware to hook up these speakers to your computer. So I go over this in detail in a separate lesson based on what you want to do, whether it's a stereo setup or a surround setup. But for stereo, I recommend Shit Audio out of Texas. It's assembled in Texas. It's really good quality for a price point that doesn't kill us as independent filmmakers. And this is their their DAC, their digital audio analog converter. So this plugs into your computer via USB-C, and then it converts the digital files to analog. And then RCA cables run up to their Magni amp, which then you can plug in headphones to, or it has preamp outs that you can plug speakers to. And this is important. You never plug in studio monitors that have their own amps into an actual amp. That wouldn't go well. These are not amps. These just allow you to plug in two powered speakers, or this amp will drive open back headphones or whatever headphones you have. So this, combined with a set of speakers, will let you do stereo monitoring for your mix, for your films, at an affordable price point. And the speakers I'm using are Mackie MR624s, so they have 6-inch drivers. Drivers are the cones on your speakers. And ideally, 8-inch drivers would have been better, and Mackie, of course, has those, but they cost a lot more. And so I'm just trying to always push the limits of getting us close to quality, close to standards, without crushing our bank accounts. So that's what I would recommend. Again, watch the stereo lesson to see details on what to get exactly, what cables to get, and how to hook it all up. Now, what's the next step up? Well, it's surround, and then there's also room treatment, and I want to talk about that. So let's do room treatment first. So what I did is I researched sound dampening foam, and those are not made equal, and again, that's in the community. So I bought those, and I went to the hardware store and got thin strips of wood and glued those to the backs, and then put hooks on it, and then I hung them from my walls and then suspended them from my ceiling. That combo helps me dampen the sound in this space. And again, if a sound engineer walked in here, they'd say, hey, yeah, you tried, but you need to tweak this and this and this. And so you can go down that road and geek out on it if you want to, but this is what I do just to make it a little better. Now let's talk about surround sound. So what changes if you go from stereo to surround in your editing room? Well, first off, obviously the speaker count goes up. Instead of 2 speakers, you're going to need 5. You need left, right, center, and then your 2 rears. And then you also need a sub. And here's the important thing. If you have a left and right speaker already, like I have Mackie MR624s, 6-inch drivers, when I went from that setup to surround for reckoning, I bought the exact same Mackie speakers. So I have the same speaker with the same size driver in the room. And then I have a Mackie sub from that same family of speakers as my sub. You don't want to mix and match even from the same manufacturer because, again, it's not going to be accurate. So don't do this Frankenstein mix. If you're going to do surround sound, just do it the right way. And you can always look for open box specials with Mackie speakers or whatever speaker you decide to go with if you don't use those. But Mackie's going to give you some good quality, again, at a price tag that won't kill you. So next, the other thing we need besides the speakers is we need different cables. So when I'm doing surround sound, it's just simple RCA cables going to the stereo speakers. But when I'm doing long cable runs, I need balanced cables that have XLR connectors for the speakers that then go to 1/4-inch jacks on my hardware. Again, I cover all this in detail in the surround sound equipment lesson, so I'm not going to go into it here. But you're going to spend probably $100 on cables, and then you're going to need a different hardware setup because, again, this only has 2 line outs for 2 speakers. This won't work to do surround sound. So for my surround sound, I'm using the Mo2 Ultralight MK5. And so this allows me to hook up all my speakers. It has 1/4-inch jacks in the back, and again, covered in detail in that lesson. So that's hardware in a nutshell. You need these at the least. And then if you can swing it, I wouldn't worry about open back and the amp that's required for all that. If you can swing it, go to a pair of studio monitors with this equipment and do your stereo mix that way. And then when you're ready, fill out the rest of the speakers and swap this out for the equipment you need. Or start with the Mo2. If you can't afford all the speakers, you can pay a little more for the Mo2 and then be ready when you take that next step versus buying this, replacing that, and going to that. And hey, listen, if you like this stuff and you're an aspiring filmmaker, I highly recommend you check out my online film school, writedirect.co. In a nutshell, here's what this is. It's a self-paced school that will save you thousands of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating at all. I did the normal thing. I moved to Los Angeles, went to film school, paid a lot of money, And I learned stuff and it was fun, but here's the thing to know about Hollywood. Nobody cares about your education or where you graduated from. They care about what you know and what you've done. So yes, you need to learn the craft, but you need to learn the craft in the cheapest way possible, because if you're an aspiring director, the first thing you need to do after school is start directing films, and it's on your dime, along with food and rent and everything else. So my goal is to teach you the craft, teach you even more than I learned in film school, and then let you use the money you didn't spend on film school to buy the gear you need to start making your own movies. So check it out, writedirect.co, and I hope to see you there. And if not there, I'll see you here on the channel in another video very soon.